You're listening to a CNA podcast.
Welcome back to the Money Talks podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Heng. This is where all kinds of conversations about your money live. And they live permanently because you have access to all of our past episodes, including our last one about the costs involved in getting a divorce. The takeaway from that conversation that I had with family lawyer Ivan Cheong: iron out all the dollars and cents early, then go and see the lawyers. Trust me, it's one of the biggest ways to save money. And of course time, and of course heartache too. You can go check it out on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. And then, when you're done listening, tell us what you think, okay? Now, when's the last time you took a career break or perhaps a sabbatical of some kind? Well, I did for 3 months, very recently actually, at the age of 38. Now, looking back, it wasn't the most financially sound move to make. I didn't have a fund to tap into, so I actually still had to do freelance gigs to get by. But the freedom, that freedom of having nothing to do, well, nothing scheduled to do, was quite wonderful, I have to say. Well, on today's episode, what I want to do is get a first-hand account of what it's like for someone who took a career break and his take on the financial considerations for those planning to take one so you don't end up like me. My guest is Andy Soh. He took a break from work for 2 years, guys, 2 years. Today, he's back at work. He's doing sales for SMEG Singapore. You know, those fancy kettles and Dolce & Gabbana fridges. Thanks for joining us on Money Talks, Andy.
Hi.
All right, so tell us, Andy, how in the first place did you land yourself in a position where you had to take such a long career break? I mean, 3 months was already nerve-wracking for me, but you took 2 years off.
Yeah, that was back in 2016, in December. I was halfway through my MBA. But then as the study get more and more tedious, working and study part-time, weekend is being burned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I decided to talk to my boss to see if I can really take a no-pay leave. But taking no-pay leave is not an option for them because they need someone to lead the sales team back then. So no choice. I have to bite the bullet, calculate the funds and everything, talk to the wife. The most important thing is she has to agree.
Absolutely. Given that you didn't really have a choice, I guess, at the time, but to take a career break in order to pursue your MBA, were you able to plan for it before you actually went on this break? I mean, how much notice was that between the time that you told your boss and your boss said no and the time you actually said, okay, you know what, I'm going to take this leave now?
I told him somewhere in June to ask him for option whether I can take a no-pay leave for a year to and a half because my study will complete in 2017.
Right.
They say it's not a company policy, even though it's a MNC. Yeah, so I guess that's where I started to plan and talk to my wife to see how much we can adjust here and there.
And how long was that conversation? How long did you plan for it?
We planned about 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you did take your time. You didn't rush into it.
We didn't rush into it, yes.
Okay.
Prepare about it financially, see where we can cut. I think the most important thing to cut is holiday.
Oh, so painful. And especially since you're working so hard on this MBA.
Yeah.
You want to take your family to a nice place to really, take a break sometimes, right? Okay, but before we get into that, I just wanted to ask also, before you went on this break, what were your monthly expenses like roughly?
Roughly, back then I already have 2 very young kids. And young kids are actually the most expensive, especially with their childcare. It can cost, back then it was already 1,200 to 2,500 per
And just per kid?
Per kid,
Wow.
yes.
And that's
correct.
on top of your expenses and your wife's
correct,
expenses?
Yes. So all in all, expenses, monthly expenses, plus the household will reach about close to 5 to 6K.
Oh, that's a big burn in the pocket.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you observe was your biggest expense? I know the kids were expensive.
Car.
The car.
Car is the biggest expenses. Yes.
And that was back then. This is
Back
before the record
Correct,
COE
yes,
now.
correct.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the car was the biggest expense. How did you plan to reduce that expense?
Okay, so when I was not studying, I took up the Grab. to drive Grab.
So you had a
Yes.
side hustle.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So it helps to supplement in terms of petrol and the road tax. But of course, installment wise, I'm not driving full time, so it's a bit difficult to cover the full installment. So at least it cover the daily much usage of
the expenses
necessity, yes.
of running the car,
Correct.
not the car itself. Okay. Was it an option for you to cut the car out completely when you went on this break?
It's not an option because my kids in the morning need to ferry them to school. And back then, my son is starting P1.
Oh, very important year.
Yes, correct. And the school is not very exactly near my house. Yeah, so that's where I need to send him to school.
Okay, so it was a bit of a sacrifice, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I hope your son listening to this years on
I hope so.
will be very grateful for Papa doing this for him, even though he had to go without a job. Did you know immediately what else you had to cut back on apart from, obviously the car wasn't an option. Did you know what else you had to cut back on? What was the first, I guess, strike off the list, if you will, of expenses?
Straight out the list is probably eating out.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
And
So
that amounted to a lot for you?
on average, eat out per meal, it comes to 100 to 150 per
for a
meal.
family of
Yes,
four?
for a family of four on a simple restaurant. We are not talking about those Michelin restaurant or those high-end restaurant. It's even simple restaurant.
Casual dining.
Casual dining, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it can come up to about $100 per meal.
So that was the first thing you struck off
Yes,
the
the first
expenses.
of the thing is
Okay.
yeah.
What else did you have to consider in terms of family expenses? For example, the kids and their extracurricular activities. Did you think about reducing expenses on that or any other family-related expenses you had to cut back on?
Back then, my girl has ballet lessons, so ballet doesn't come cheap as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we moved her from those private ballet school to those people association school.
So it's more affordable.
more affordable, which is about half the price. Yeah, so she still get to dance and not say stop totally. So, and the other thing is enrichment class, we don't really have it, so it's not a big concern. I think the other concern is insurance.
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of us while we are working, we tend to buy what we can afford and everything. But when I decided to take this 2 years old, I speak to my insurance agent to see if I can go on a premium holiday, something like that. So they say can, because back then I bought this rider. The insurance that I bought is actually more for my kids' future study and everything as well.
I see.
So quite a huge amount is being sucked in. So it's good that I have the rider on, but it only can go for maximum 1 year.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
still better than
Better than nothing.
nothing.
Yes,
yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Did you feel like you needed to be extra vigilant, make sure you don't fall seriously ill, you don't get to an accident, that sort of stuff? Otherwise, your insurance might not kick in. Or did you worry about stuff like that when you went on the break?
It came across my mind, but we just had to say we need to live normally and not to be overcautious. I think the more cautious you are, the more worried you are, the tendency for you to fall sick is higher.
Yeah, it's actually very true. I mean, a lot of us forget that sometimes stressing over not falling sick, you do end up falling sick, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another interesting question for you. My dad was retrenched before. It's a bit different from yours. My dad was retrenched before. He had a really tough time trying to sort of explain to us kids, and we were quite a bit older than your kids, we were teenagers. He had a bit of a tough time trying to adjust to being unemployed. Some would even argue he had an even tougher time explaining to us as kids, hey, Papa's not working because so and so. How did you explain to two young children the reason for your career break?
It's a bit tough because they are still young and they still want to eat whatever they want to eat back then.
Because they don't know where the money comes from,
Yes,
right?
correct. They still don't have the concept of where the money comes from. So what we need to do is we just have to slowly make it a habit to not to eat out so often.
Right.
Yeah, so we started off with Monday to Friday, eat home. Then Saturday, Sunday, we only eat one meal outside and the rest is eat at home.
Okay, so it's just establishing new routines
Yes, correct.
for them.
So when kids are young, it's easier to make a routine and everything. So explaining to them will make it worse. They will not understand why, and they create a big fuss, and
Right.
after that, parents also get angry as well. So sometimes we just need to keep status quo a bit, and we just slowly build a new routine around them.
Okay, so they don't actually know. They didn't
Yes.
actually know that you were unemployed.
Yes, correct. But
Okay.
it's just that they realize that, how come I'm at home more often?
I'm sure they were happy with that.
Yes, they are happy with it. Actually,
Yeah.
I enjoy the 2 years spending time with them, picking them up and sending them to school.
Yeah,
spending more
and
time
these
at
are
home.
important years. They're still
Yes,
so
correct.
young,
Yeah.
right? That was what I was going to ask also. Do you think there was a lesson there to teach them? You know, as a parent, you're going through these changes. Did you think there was a lesson there to be taught?
Well, the lesson I learned is that we constantly need to talk to them. That why we are at home is not because we choose to be at home, but it's not by circumstances, but it's by what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also we hardly spend time with them during this period of time.
Yeah.
Especially if let's say they go to childcare,
Yeah.
9 hours are in school and the rest before they sleep is only the balance of 2 hours.
Yeah,
and
that's
how
not a lot of
often we spend time with them.
Correct.
Yeah. So my advice to parents or working adults who want to take a career break, think carefully about the finances. We need to have on average expenses to keep about a year if you want to do a year.
I think that's very good advice. But I think also, I'll ask you later on about whether it was all worth it. I just wanted to get more into the nitty gritty. Now, we talked about the kids. Now, let's talk about the wife. So you had all these ongoing expenses to think about. You took 6 months, the two of you, to discuss, okay, here's what we're cutting out, here's what we're keeping, here's how we are reducing. Talk to us about how you and your wife came together to iron things out. I assume she was still working at this time,
Yes,
right?
she is still working.
Okay, so was there an expectation that you would be contributing the same to the household during this break?
I would say initially it's a little bit difficult because most of the time I'm the one that pay most of the household. So as time goes by, I had to explain to her that my saving is depleting.
Yeah.
I can't really put in the same amount of saving into the same joint account that we have. So for the 2 years, she wear the pants at home and I became the house husband.
How did you deal with that? Were you okay with it?
I initially was a little bit weird to be a house husband because it's unusual for Singapore men.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a mindset and mentality that we need to adjust because, yes, if I want to take a break and want to study, I will take a step back
Yeah.
and she will have to take the lead.
And how did she feel about that?
She also feel weird because I'm the man on the house and suddenly she... Yeah, so I say, I'm not totally laying off.
Yeah.
It's just that in terms of finances, you are taking the front lead, where I'm taking a back seat.
Yeah.
And we will still discuss on things that do with kids and everything. It's just that financially, I'm not as capable as I am previously, but I do respect her for seeking my advice and my opinion
Yeah.
on the things to spend on everything.
I think that's the sign of a strong, solid, and healthy partnership, really, because without that communication, it's going to be hard for you to have taken this break. I mean, you talk about 1 year, we talk about a few months, and already people get worried, right? In marriages and relationships. This is 2 years, so kudos to the two of you.
Yes.
You guys are still together. Just put it out there. You guys are still together.
Yes.
You're happy. You've worked
And-
things out.
and-
The more important thing is you earned your MBA at the end of it.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the good thing is that she has a stable job.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that makes it count because when one party is not so stable,
Correct.
the other one has to keep
The-
man the
the-
fort,
yes.
right? Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Crispina,
And I'm Adrian.
and we're the hosts of a podcast called Work It.
If you've never heard of it, well, it's a good time to tap in.
In the last 20 episodes, we've discussed topics like how to negotiate for a salary increase,
Or how to get along with younger colleagues who have different values from you, which incidentally is our top performing episode.
if work consumes your life and you want some perspective on issues like management, stress, even office romance, then this podcast should be on your list. A new episode drops every Monday.
Catch us on the CNA app or wherever you get your podcasts.
So you did say that travel was obviously like, no, it's not going to happen during this career break. Did you try to budget for one, like maybe to nearby places?
Yes, we did budget for one to Phuket.
Ah,
Yes, because before that we managed to purchase the so-called merit vacation club thing. So we managed to still use the points, so we don't need to really pay for the hotel. We just need to buy air tickets to go there for about 4 days, 3 nights to take a
Oh,
short
that's
break.
smart. Would you add that to your advice in terms of strategizing a career break? Like, collect all these points, know where your points are, be the auntie.
Yes, correct. Okay, I won't say buy a package beforehand. Like I say, in the event, if you still manage to save up a few $100s every month here and there, cutting down those expenses, I'm sure working out all the budget and everything, we still can do a short holiday somewhere.
Yeah.
No need to be far. As long as the family can get together and enjoy ourselves, is good
Hey,
enough.
you can take a 5-hour bus ride to KL.
Yeah.
I mean, if the kids can
or
stomach
even
it.
a staycation would be good enough as well. also.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's a few $100s.
Yes.
You take a break, you enjoy it, the holiday experience as a family. Kids don't know the
Yes,
difference,
correct.
really, right?
Yeah. As long as it's not at home.
As long as it's not at home, we're not washing dishes, we're not doing the ironing, nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about insurance, we talked about household expenses, conversations with the kids and the wife. Did you budget for investments then? Did you have any investments before going on this career break, and how did you manage them when you went on that break?
Okay, I bought a couple of shares. That's where I liquidated a bit as well. So it's an unplanned liquidation because of this 2-year break.
Sure.
But no doubt, as you see if the profit has been made, do not be greedy and say hold on to it. But like I say, use it. These are the emergency funds that can liquid easily
And
out,
for some people, that's exactly what that is for.
Yes,
the investments
correct.
are for.
Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily for a rainy day, but it's comforting knowing that it's there.
It's
for
there
you to
that for
use.
you to utilize when you need it. Yes.
And have you gone back on those investments since you've returned
Yes,
to work?
I did. Yes.
Okay, so you're feeling quite relieved now.
Yes,
you're
correct.
quite relaxed, I have to say, for the listener. Andy is dressed very comfortably and casually in a pair of chinos and polo shirt. He's very relaxed now. He's got his MBA in his pocket. Though those 2 years must have been really stressful. So, in the final calculation of your expenses, how did you cover them while being effectively unemployed? I mean, did you continue your Grab driving, for example? Did you amp it up?
Okay, for my routine, actually, the day is very simple. In the morning, I drive both kids to school.
Yep.
After dropping out, I will start the Grab. We'll drive until about close to 11 o'clock. I'll go home, take a break. Then 1+, I will start to fetch them again.
Okay.
Then I reach home and spend time with them at home. Then in the evening, about after dinner, I do another 2 hours and come back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the routine.
And that was it for 2 years?
Yes, correct.
For someone who is taking a voluntary break, I would say yours is voluntary in a sense. For someone doing what you did, how much would you say he or she should set aside financially? I know you said a year's worth of expenses. Is there any advice on top of that?
Well, our expenses mainly covers a lot of unnecessary purchases online nowadays. So if we can cut that away to minimum, like maybe just the necessaries item for the household, we would usually cut at least 20% of what we usually spend. That's my advice. So if you plan to take 6 months, you prepare about 80% of what your expenses.
Right.
It should be enough for you to still live comfortably and doing what you like to do as well also.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. And I like that you put numbers to that. I think it's true. You can cut 20%, sometimes even more, of what we normally spend on a
Yes,
day-to-day basis.
correct.
And if you can do that, you can probably survive on, I guess, the remainder of the amount of what you used to earn. My next question is, how would you advise this person to prioritize the finances?
Okay, the prioritize are the things that is a must pay. Must pay like housing, your car, if you have a car, and of course the kids' allowance that you do not want them to worry that there's no food on the table. These 3 things are the most important thing that you need to prioritize in terms of cutting away.
I mean, the car was there because you are in sales.
Yes.
And it's something that you're used to having, and
Correct.
you needed them for the kids.
Correct. So the other option is downgrade the car if you necessary, because a car, if it's just a car for you to ferry around. Of course, don't downgrade to those need a lot of repair. Yeah, just to do the due diligence to go for inspection and all this.
Yeah,
before you
because
purchase new car.
all those repairs add up to
a lot
extra
more,
costs.
even more. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so you took a career break to complete this MBA and the point was to upgrade yourself.
Yep.
All said and done, Andy, would you say it was all worth it? The 2 years of pain, the cutting back on expenses, keeping things status quo at home for the kids and that conversation with your wife, was it all worth it?
Yes, it's all worth it.
Yeah? Would you do it all over again if you could?
I would do it again, but not
Right.
for 2 years. 2 years a little bit too long, I would say, because after a while you realize that you keep doing back the same thing and over again is very difficult. So I think a career break for half a year to 1 year is good enough to
Okay.
re-energize yourself, to refocus yourself on what you want to do as well.
Did you feel going back to work now in your current job, you were entering with a different perspective?
Yes, I did enter with a different perspective and what is the real goal for me at the end of the day of a career. Yeah.
Are you guys still cutting back on expenses now that you're back at work?
Not really now. It's not say cutting back, but like I say, it's not just taking a break. Sometimes my advice is to those who also doing a career switch as well. So you may have a pay cut. That's where you also need to learn how to cut back as well. So
Yeah, I think it's always a work in progress.
Yes, correct.
Always. I think, would I be correct to say that you, I guess, are more watchful of your expenses if you're not cutting back on them now that you're back at work? Are you more watchful of
more
them?
watchful, yes.
Yeah.
So we learn to budget a little bit more, to cut back as well. So when to spend and when not to spend. Is it necessary or not necessary?
Yeah. These are simple questions, but they can be sometimes the most important ones, right?
Yeah.
You have to be real with yourself at the end of the day and have a wife like
Yes.
yours.
Thank you.
All right. So, what's your best takeaway from this 2-year career break?
Spending time with friends and relatives is very important. We can't live alone in this world. We need friends, because if you have wives and kids, they are the next best person that you know them and they know you the best. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Sabbaticals, career breaks, they seem to be quite rare here in Singapore, but they're not unusual, as is the case with Andy here. In a country where the cost of living is a constant stress point, so many of us wouldn't dare take a career break for the risk of losing not just money, but also worrying about how it will affect our careers. But depending on your need for one, a career break can still be highly beneficial in perhaps other intangible ways. Thanks, Andy, for sharing your experience with us and for giving us the advice we need.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And thank you to you, listener. If you've enjoyed this episode of Money Talks, there's more content for you to enjoy. Just follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, tell us what you think of this episode or others that you've listened to. We want to know. The team behind Money Talks is Jacqueline Chan, Joanne Chan, Tiffany Ang, Crispina Robert, Saya Wint, Jesselyn Tan, and I'm Andrea Heng. Master your money.